While 2021 had many of us rocking tinfoil helmets, 2022 has slapped us all into new heights of a post-COVID era. In an effort to keep us all safe, I've spent the last half of 2022 sampling a bunch of different helmets. From the smaller Smith helmet to the massive full face from the same brand, I had some surprises, some disappointments, and thankfully, no more head injuries. Most surprising of all was that, after another year of technological development, my favorite helmet from 2020 is still my favorite helmet today. Wait until the end of the video to find out what exactly that favorite might be. I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this video, Jensen USA. Jensen's a leading online retailer here in the United States of America for bicycles, parts, and accessories. Jensen has a great selection of mountain bike helmets from top brands like Fox, Leatt, POC, Troy Designs, Cali Protectives, and a ton more. When you're shopping with Jensen, you know you're getting a genuine, actual product, not any sort of imitation or fake, and with safety gear like a helmet, that's of particular importance. I've got links down below to all of these helmets over at Jensen. Anything you do purchase from Jensen will directly help support my channel. That's a big part of how we make these videos happen. I did buy all the helmets discussed in this video myself, though I didn't quite pay full retail on them as I am working with Jensen USA. In addition to Jensen, I'm supported by P&W Components and Industry 9. So while we're here, do me a solid, scroll on down to where it says subscribe and click that button. While you're down there, hit the little bell icon along with the like button. And of course, let me know in the comments, what is your favorite helmet of this bunch? Let's jump into the video. After a concussion back in 2020, I decided I should do all I can to get the safest helmet possible. Perhaps the easiest requirements for all my future helmets is the inclusion of that MIPS technology. Now, since this is an acronym, you know it's good. This stands for Multi-Directional Impact Protection. MIPS allows for a slip plane within the helmet, which is touted to better reduce rotational energy. Maybe it's not the end-all be-all for safety, but in my efforts to avoid an end-all, I figured the MIPS technology is easy enough to include and shouldn't really have many downsides. As we talk helmets, the elephant in the room would obviously be, how safe are they? Thanks to the lab testing work of Virginia Tech, we're closer than ever to having a neutral third party provide exactly that sort of info. These rankings are helpful, but they do not tell a complete story. I discovered some, transparency that you all might find important. Before we get lost in the weeds, I do think it's important to look at the Virginia Tech ratings, but look at it more as like a pass-fail than as an actual detailed comparison of what is minutely better than something else. More in detail about this at the end of the video. So let's jump into these helmets. The Giro Merit Spherical. With many years in the Boy Scouts, I earned quite a few merit badges, but these days, a merit is going to cost you around $200. Not included in the Virginia Tech rankings, but I feel confident that the merit should be comparable to the smaller, lighter-duty Manifest, which tested within the top 1/3. Giro's spherical design is super cool. The merit essentially double bags your head with a helmet-in-a-helmet design. It's a cool setup, and when Giro claims the helmet uses a progressive EPS layering, I do tend to believe them. During the summer, the helmet does flow air quite well. Maybe not quite as well as the Little Smith Session, but it feels overall safer, and the padding on the Giro does a much better job of dissipating sweat. With all that in mind, the Giro Merit Spherical is my favorite of these helmets on hot days. Unfortunately, the helmet has a small visor, and just as pencils have erasers, no one is perfect. POC Cordal Race MIPS. I've heard a lot of love for POC in the comments over the years, and I've had a few items from POC that were pretty darn good. The Cordal has a nicely adjustable visor and has some nice deep coverage at the back and sides of the head. While it doesn't have as much coverage as a Tyrant or Switchblade, it's a nice hybrid between that style of open face helmet and a traditional mountain bike lid. Fortunately, for me, the Cordal isn't the most comfortable and it uses no padding at all in the rear half of the helmet. I would often look forward to taking the Cordal off. The integrated MIPS system is extremely low profile, which gives me some doubts, but it's officially licensed by MIPS, and they're both Swedish, so it probably works pretty well together. There is no mention of dual density foam, just an aramid bridge to keep the helmet together on bigger impacts. If you do not fit Giro helmets for your personal head shape, then you might find the POC helmets to better fit your Swedish-shaped noggin. While the Cordal isn't Virginia Tech rated, POC helmets are all over the testing charts, so I will not attempt to comment on the safety. The Smith Session. The Smith Session was pretty popular among trail riders in 2022, as I've seen these all over the place here in the Pacific Northwest as well as down in Arizona. This helmet is the only one here to use the full-size traditional MIPS system. Before we get into the details, I gotta ask, does this helmet look like a Session? Let me know in the comments down below. All that said, the Session was conspicuously absent from Virginia Tech rankings, and the Smith options that are on there don't score all that well. Smith relies on a single EPS foam, but they use those choroid inserts. These are held in place by some glue, and they work themselves loose in both of the Smith helmets in this video. With the current war on drinking straws, I'm wondering if choroid will be next. I was pretty optimistic about the session, as I haven't ridden the Smith helmet since the first Forefront generation came out about a decade ago. The session is light and ventilates quite well. I think of the session as perhaps like a dingo, and my Giro Tyrant is more of a Siberian Husky. The session doesn't deal with sweat as well as the Giro helmets, as the Smith brow pads will fill with sweat then dump it directly into my eyes. The fit is similar to Giro, and the comfort is pretty okay. The buckles and adjusters would indeed slip on occasion, so I did find myself mucking about those here and there. I don't regret trying the session, but it's not my daily go-to. This helmet has been deeply discounted, so if you're looking for a budget unit, this might work for some. Or maybe it's a good gift for an ex-girlfriend? You tell me in the comments below. Smith Mainline. Many of you insist I should always wear a full face. I do wear full faces when it makes sense, when hitting bike parks, big jumps, or doing something extraordinarily dangerous. Now I had a bit of a journey with the Mainline. Initially, I hated the fit. Then I swapped internal padding with the thicker units that came with the helmet, and just like with your favorite jeans after that first year of use, both fit and comfort improved greatly. The Mainline feels lighter duty and vents better than the Switchblade from last year. I do find the Switchblade more comfortable, and would say I prefer that Giro option for bike park or shuttle days. All that said, for crank and plummet style riding, I do occasionally bring the Mainline, as the lightweight and good ventilation make it a pretty unobtrusive full face option. Heads up, the Mainline sounds like a family of mice has had a full litter of youngins within the liner, as there's a constant squeak of the MTB system against the shell. It also features the choroid plastic. This means more honeycomb wedged and glued within the vents. I'm not really convinced by choroid. Overall, when holding the helmet, it does feel as though it's super high quality. Visibility is great with the Mainline, and I can see why it's so popular. Now, after a few years, what helmet is still my favorite? The Giro Tyrant. After 3 years, the Tyrant gets my nod as my favorite all-around helmet. It absolutely lives up to its ruthless leader name, as it sets the benchmark in several areas. I really appreciate this thing in the winter months, but since it's not overly warm, I comfortably use the Tyrant from October to June here in the Pacific Northwest. The spherical technology, otherwise known as the cranial double bag, makes a lot of sense. The overall coverage is great, the weight isn't bad, and the foam padding works amazing. Giro is a leader to me when it comes to quality padding and materials. The only real downside to the Tyrant is a lack of availability. I don't think Giro has done a very good job of marketing this helmet. As with most helmets, the visor is too short. If we could put a Switchblade visor on a Tyrant shell, along with a Fidlock buckle, we might just have my dream helmet. But for now, I'll be happily pedaling along in my ruthless leader, the cranial Genghis Khan of the helmet world. Last year, I had noticed that the Fox drop frame, which at the time led the Virginia Tech rankings, has a really odd sizing. Medium was absolutely tiny. Personally, I have a 58cm skull, and I couldn't fit at all into my size medium drop frame. I had some emails with the Virginia Tech Director of Outreach and Business Development, Dr. Barry Miller, about the size of each helmet tested, given that they use the standardized 58cm medium head form, which is basically the same size as my head. Dr. Miller emailed to me that we use the medium-sized NOC SAE head form, and when we test helmets if they're on the cusp between medium and large, we generally go with the larger size, as we don't want to pre-compress any padding. In general, I would say that the larger sized helmets likely perform slightly better as they have a bit more mass, and force equals mass times acceleration. As mass goes up, acceleration will go down for given impact force. When Fox won, they had extremely small sizing on that particular model, and possibly an extra large helmet was to be tested. While this gives undersized helmets an advantage in the rankings, this creates no real noticeable advantage in real-world safety. Now, I doubt this discrepancy would affect real-life safety much, but it can certainly skew the published test results. Consumers certainly put a lot of weight into these rankings, and sales definitely follow any manufacturer who tops that chart. No testing method will ever be universally perfect, and while I generally trust these rankings, I'm now using them as more of a pass-fail. Regarding other tests, comment below if your life plans are put aside by any ambiguous questions on those pesky SAT or ACT tests. If you guys enjoyed this video, grab yourself a fresh, safe helmet for the next year, hit the subscribe button, and have a wonderful new year. Peace, everyone.